Many of you have heard of the idea of a tool called future memory in order to create the reality that you want. We will be discussing this idea this night of your time. You may use that as your entitlement if you wish, future memory. But before we begin, I will say, how are you all this evening of your time? We thank you for your participation in the understanding, the comprehension, and the experience of the growth of your own beingness and the changes and the impact that has upon your world. We thank you for your momentum and your energy. Let us begin the idea of creating the future memory. It goes hand in hand, as you say, with the notion of creating the reality you want in very specific terms. During the idea that you have called a workshop that we have recently conducted with you, we discussed some very specific tools with regard for creating the specific kind of reality that you want to attract in your life. The creation of future memory is another such tool, one that can be used with quite a bit of precision, for once again it involves the imagination and the picture-making capacity that your imagination has, but in a very different way, approaching it, as you say, through another doorway where you may not yet have placed too many guards, too many ideas of analysis that would prevent you from being able to use it in a very fluid manner. Always, when we approach these tools and these ideas with each and every one of you, we always do it from a different direction so that we can touch on as many possible ways as there are possible people, possible personas within your society, so that the same idea, the same energy can be approached from all the different ways that there are to approach it from as many different ways as there are people in your world, so that each and every one of you will find the exact and most appropriate way that works best for you. Of course, it is up to you to do this specifically within your own meditations, within your own discoveries, but we are more than willing to experience with you the joy of discovering all the many ways you can look at the same one thing, the same one energy out of which all dimensions of reality are created. Now, the idea of future memory basically is analogous to the idea of creating a scenario in your imagination that is in every way, shape, and form, in every possible specific detail, the scenario that you wish to have in your life. We discussed this in the workshop as the idea of identifying strongly with your imagination scenario, creating the scenario, locking into the scenario with your emotions, identifying strongly with it, and then physically acting that scenario through to, in a sense, train your physical cellular structure to develop the habits that go along with a person who lives in the scenario you say you want to live in. These are the ideas we touched upon in the workshop, steps 1, 2, and 3. Naming the scenario, locking into the scenario emotionally, and physically acting the scenario through. But here, this idea of creating future memory is yet another way to approach the idea of creating the specific scenario in your imagination that is representative of the life you want to live. We call it future memory because we use the concept that you have called memory to activate it. It is something that all of you are very familiar with. You all know how to basically remember something. Now, very often you say, well, yes, it is very easy to remember in general terms, but memory is always of something that is past, something in the past, something I've already done. That is not always so. Sometimes what you call precognition can, in another way, be called future memory. But the idea, the way we are going to discuss it this night of your time, is in using the mechanism that you already call past memory, with which you're all relatively familiar, and bringing that mechanism, associating that mechanism to the idea of projecting ahead in the following way. Pick right now an idea, any idea whatsoever of something you know you have already done. It would be a good suggestion, shall we say, to pick something that you found enjoyable, so that you will be excited about it instead of lamenting it and bringing up the idea of guilt. We would suggest you find something in your past that represents a very enjoyable experience. Remember it now in the way that you simply typically remember anything. Take a moment to do so. As you are remembering this scenario, roll it around in your mind, you find yourself probably very easily identifying with it emotionally. It is a very simple thing to plug your emotions into it because, as you say in your physical linear reality, well, yes, of course, I already experienced it that way, so all I'm actually doing is remembering the experience as fully as I can. No big trick, as you say. But remember, we have discussed with you many times the idea that memory is actually being created right now in the present. You don't actually remember the past per se. You create an idea. You create a perception in the present that you call a memory of the past. It is a memory, so to speak. It is a recognition. It is a cognition in the present, so to speak, of another probable you, another aspect of the total being that you are. Because you are beings that have created familiarity with linear time, some of those aspects of yourself are more easily relegated to a past. Some of those aspects of your present self are more easily relegated to a future or an alternate dimension. Anywhere but here and now. In order for you to focus in this particular reality, you have, as a society, created, as you know, a great deal of separation to isolate certain aspects of the total being so that that aspect, this persona in this life, in what you call your present scenario, only has a focus of its limited self and no other, so that it can get on about the business of being that specific, isolated, local person, so that it doesn't get confused, as you say, by bleed-through from all the other realities that you are living simultaneously. This is all well and good, and it is a very valid experience, of course. But now, as your society is expanding its consciousness, a lot of this bleed-through is happening automatically because you can absorb more and more. You can have more cognition of all the other ideas that are going on simultaneously. And that is the point we wish to underline, that this so-called reality of the future that you desire so strongly is going on right now, simultaneously with the reality you say is usually the only one you actually think is going on right now. Just as the past is still happening right now. It isn't so much that they're truly stretched out in linear fashion, before, now, later, but they are all simultaneously coexistent. And your focus, and only your definitional focus, determines that you experience them in a segregated linear fashion. So just as it is very easy for you to recall something you have already done, and very simple to remember and conjure up all the emotions that you felt then, sometimes, by the way, you will notice when we talk about acting these scenarios out, that if you are actually recalling a past memory strongly enough, you will actually find your body going through the motions that you did then as an automatic response to what you have already done, if you identify strongly enough with it. This habit, this strength of conviction, the strength of identification is what we are after with regard to making that association to the future memory, the scenario you create in your imagination that you say you would love to have in your life. Learn to identify with the ideas in a very strong emotional and physiological way to things you have already done. Get into the habit in your meditations of recalling joyful events, many, many different joyful events, things that you really liked about your life. List them out if you want to. Label them down. Write them out so they are clear to you. Pick many, many events that were very enjoyable for you and go through them one at a time. Take your time. Enjoy them. Do not hurry through them out of anxiety and desperation to apply the tool to the future memory. Take your time and really reminisce, as you say, walk slowly and joyfully down memory lane with all those things so that you are able to extend your full sensibilities and really smell and really taste and really hear and really see and really feel, truly relive those experiences so that your physical body begins to react to them. Then, pick the scenario. After you have done that, pick the scenario that you say represents the very specific reality you would desire to have, and then put it somewhere in that list. You can even play a game with yourself. You can write all these different ideas on separate cards, and you can mix them all up, so that you do not necessarily know what order the future memory will fall in with all the past ones. Then start at the top and go down the list again. Do it over and over until the future memory is as strongly recalled as the past memories, until there is no difference in your reaction between the two. Then you will learn that there really is no difference. Then you will understand that it is a very simple thing to manifest that future reality as your present reality, because it will literally become something you have already done, and it will be a given. You will take it for granted that it is already something within you, not something you have to reach for that is beyond you, not something that is outside of you that you have to travel towards, not something that you have to attain someday, somewhere in that dim, dark future out there. You will be retraining your body, your consciousness, to accept it as if it is already a given, already done, already seen. What you say in your French language, déjà vu. You will create that effect for something that in your typical reality has not happened yet, linearly speaking. But if your body resonance, if your consciousness resonance begins to vibrate at a frequency that says this has already happened, then your reality cannot let such a vacuum stand in your physical manifestations. If you are saying this is something that already exists for you, it must be automatically supplied. You will create that space. You will create that vacuum into which that reality must come. And only that reality will come, because that reality, as you know, is a specific frequency. And you are giving off at that moment that specific frequency as you recall the future memory, as you reminisce this idea you want. You will give off that frequency. You will take it for granted that it is already within you, and as such, all you have to do from that point forward is begin to look around, and you will see that the manifestations of that reality are already springing up all around you, because they must be there, since you have already, vibrationally speaking, done this thing. So give yourselves this opportunity. Do this, as you say, homework or home fun, this meditation, and enjoy it fully, savor it. Do it in whatever way, shape, or form your imagination says would be the most fun. That will be the key. And then you can incorporate anything you want to into that particular type, into that particular list, into that particular approach, so that you can allow yourself to lose your definition, to blend your definition of past and future into one all-encompassing present, in which you already contain everything that you need to contain to be who you desire to be. You all follow along? Yes. Do you think you all remember what I said? Yes. Oh, all right. That will be up to you. We thank you at this time for allowing us to share with you that particular reflection. We bid that you have an exciting time with that meditation in your own time and on your own timing. At this timing, we extend to each and every one of you once again our deepest gratitude at being allowed to experience your consciousness, at being allowed to remember you in our present, and in being remembered by you in your present. We thank you for this interaction. We thank you for the sharing. In return, I ask you now, in what way, at this timing, may I be of service to you?
Bashar.
And to you, good day. Do remember to speak up boldly so that all may share who you are.